Finally, we have Professor Dessent, who is a professor of physical and analytical chemistry in the Department of Chemistry at York. She was previously the chair of the Equality and Diversity Group in Chemistry from 2017 to 2021, and she's led all the equality and diversity and inclusion work conducted by the department, including leading the chemistry department successfully 2019 Gold Athena Swan Award. She also served as the head of department from 2021 to 2025 and has been a passionate advocate for the careers of women in science for many years, but has recently focused on working to improve the participation of minoritized ethnic scientists in academia. She established work at York to decolonize the chemistry curriculum and has led the RC funded project to investigate the lived experiences of minoritized chemistry students and staff, which she will discuss now. So please welcome Dessent.
Well, thanks very much. Yes, I've got this on, haven't I? Hello everyone. I'm going to tell you a bit about the lived experiences work, which some of you will have heard about before, but I don't think everybody will have had. So this was a project that began a long time ago, so back in about 2019 in fact, and in some ways it's one of the problems with it that it went on over very many years. So I think things already were changing over the time that we were trying to do the surveys and things that happened as part of it. But anyway, that's just a kind of a methodological kind sort of comment I think up front about it. And really the motivation for the project was that we wanted to better understand really the experiences of ethnic minority individuals in the department. So both the students, the undergraduates, the PhDs, but also our staff really who are minoritized, and really what their impressions were, how included they felt in the department. And really the motivation then was to gather that information and to try to do something about it to make things better, because I think there's a very widespread understanding in the science community of the extent to which individuals from, who are minoritized are underrepresented. So there's huge underrepresentation in chemistry, but also across STEM really from many individuals from minority ethnic groups. And the Royal Society of Chemistry has been, subsequently done some really good work. There's a great report, but I mean a very sobering report really, I think, as well. So I think this really came in a way from our experience of trying to improve things around gender in the department. And a lot of the early work, I mean, we have been doing this now for, I mean, it's over 2 decades really that work has gone on. But in the early stages, it was so important to listen to the individuals and to try to understand, I think, their experiences. I'm not going to dwell on this too much. I mean, there's not a lot of time, but it's just to give an overview of what the representation is like in our department. And I suppose, to be brief, really, we certainly are. I mean, a representation at undergraduate level is about what you might expect for the chemistry population, I think, nationally. But having said that, you have then a kind of a disruption always across the pipeline of careers is the thing that is important, I think, thing to say. So progression is the real issue for these individuals. In our PGT group that After was talking about earlier on, we do have quite a high proportion there of ethnic minority students, and of course, and that reflects the fact that we have many overseas students studying on that programme. And I think also in our PGR numbers, we do again have good representation, but that again comes from the fact that we have many students who are coming from overseas. So these statistics, I think, are always complicated by who the individuals are, and so they only present something of an overview here, really. So this project was very much a team effort. So Leonie took a huge role in it, alongside Sean McQuinney, who again some of you might know, and he's really a researcher, so he's got a long background of working around equality and diversity work, particularly in chemistry. So his background is as a chemist, and he now leads this policy institute called Oxford Research and Policy. So it was wonderful really to have him involved in the project, because he was able to come in as an independent person to help us develop the surveys that we eventually used, but also to run the focus groups that happened. And so the actual project, it involved surveys of both our undergraduates and our PG students, but then also focus groups, both with the students, but also with PGR students as well as undergraduates, and then one-to-one discussions with our academic and professional services members of staff, and that was done one-to-one, of course, because our numbers are very low, is the thing we have to accept there. Yeah, I think we don't have to worry too much about that. It's just the numbers of the surveys. Why don't we, I guess, just focus a little bit. So as with surveys, it generated a huge amount of information. And then Leonie was involved alongside Sean of analysing all of this information and trying to pull it together, really. And I think it was a job that was much bigger than we probably anticipated. And, you know, because of that, took quite a long time to pull things together. But there was certainly some really important messages that came out of this. And really, I think, again, very sobering information. So you can see there at the top that only a third of the ethnic minority student respondents were confident that their ethnicity wouldn't affect their progression in chemistry. I mean, that's just something to stop really and think about. You know, and as I say, these kind of really experiences that led them to believe they were being treated differently in our department, which I think is something that, you know, is quite hard to hear, but, you know, at the same time, perhaps not entirely surprising. Although overt racism was rare, the experience was one of intersectionality, in that females who were surveyed had experienced more negative experiences than males who were surveyed. And that was something that was reflected through several of the questions in it. And that there also was the other point here that's kind of highlighted down below is one that says that in some respect, what we learned was that the students who come to York, perhaps ethnic minority students who come to York, are perhaps not representative of all ethnic minority students, or certainly there would be big differences, we think, in different institutions. We found through the focus groups that these students often tended to come from areas where the students were already perhaps living in quite minoritized, towns and cities as well. So in a sense, they came to York sort of knowing that York was a city that didn't have really diverse kind of representation of ethnic minority individuals, but they were sort of used to living in those types of areas as well. So there's just some important things, again, I guess, to recognise about having done this survey just at York. There were lots of very interesting things that came out about cultural diversity, and I've put up some of the key bullet points there. But one of the big things that's really nice, I think, in linking into today's overall seminar was that we did get a message that decolonisation was really appreciated. So the students welcomed it, they liked it, they felt it, you know, improved their feelings of inclusion in the department. So that's I think, a very encouraging message for us today. But if, you know, then there are the big things. The students would like more staff who are ethnic minority staff. That really has to be something, I think, if we want to build an environment that's properly inclusive for us. At the time, there was a feeling that we could be doing more around cultural festivals and religious celebrations. But you know, again, I think there's been progress with that. And also just information really about how culturally challenging York is as a place to live, and around issues like food and hairdressing, just real challenges for individuals just in terms of living their daily life, really. And I just put a picture at the bottom. So one of the things that was mentioned several times was that the university could do more about celebrating its amazing chancellor. So that's Dr. Heather Melville, who I thought it would be nice to put her picture on so that we celebrated it really as I was talking today. How am I doing? I'm probably almost out of time, yeah. One of the other things that was really interesting, I think, for me about the survey was the information that we learnt for our overseas students compared to our home students. And there were lots of aspects of this that showed even more how difficult, I suppose, life was, or how, in terms of feeling included from the overseas students' points of view. There was really strong evidence about how misunderstood individuals felt coming into the, you know, that kind of UK culture here. And a real feeling that, you know, I suppose we often think of ourselves as researchers as being people who come into contact very often with people from around the globe, but on that kind of daily lived experience feelings, I suppose, that the individuals didn't feel that they were understood, or that there was even an appreciation that they may behave in a culturally different way. And that there were, I suppose, alongside that, many people who spoke about the financial problems that they experienced as international students. That was a very strong theme that came out of this. And I think for me it was, I mean, I'd seen this on individual levels, but I think understanding it on a bigger scale of how much there's an overlap, a socioeconomic overlap, a lower socioeconomic overlap with our international students as well. So a lot of real challenges there. So in terms of impact for the project, this project has been disseminated. I think one of the nicest things we've been able to do, though I haven't actually heard the results from either of them, but we have this year been able to share the survey tools that we developed with Queen Mary and also with the University of Bristol. So we're sort of waiting it'd be very interesting because they're both, I mean, I suppose Bristol is a bit the same, but a bit different, as in the city that it's in. But also Queen Mary's a very different type of institution in terms of its students. I have certainly spoken about this around the department, but I think, you know, oh yes, I put this in here. So the report is published so that in its full glory, which is over 100 pages, if anybody's interested in going away and reading about it in detail. And it's available on our York Research Depository. So yeah, do get in touch with me if this goes by too quickly and you know, people are interested in getting the reference for it. So I suppose in just presenting today, I was also thinking about reflection. So it's a little bit like what Kelechi was talking about earlier on, about reflecting back on perhaps what's changed or what's got better and maybe what hasn't changed so much. And I think the good is that definitely we are more culturally aware about, certainly around religious festivals. I think and you know, in sort of supporting individuals through periods like Ramadan, for example, there's been, you know, some really nice activities that we've been able to do there. I think it's been wonderful to see Avatar really kind of stepping up in terms of leadership in the department, and that's so important, I think, to have that visible leadership here. So, you know, that's been wonderful to see. And I think the decolonising work is certainly a strength for us and something we can be proud of. And, you know, it's a strong signal, I think, that we do want to improve, you know, the inclusion and the diversity here. I think, you know, if I'm honest, the not so good is that we have lost some ethnic minority members of our, so I say staff, and I'm thinking academic staff there, that we do have one new junior academic staff member who's a fellow at the moment, but if we look over the number of staff, academic staff for teaching and scholarship as well as for research that we've recruited, that's a small percentage, and you know, probably should be below what we might like. And I know we're going to end up, aren't we, with talking about kind of commitments to action. And I think it is the thing that's always so difficult and so frustrating when you want to see this improve, is that to me, the thing I would really like to see more than anything, I think, is to see more ethnic minority academic staff. I really think that would change things in the perception of all of our students, really, you know, in terms of this department being a welcoming and inclusive place. And it would be wonderful, I think, to see a real appointment, you know, sort of commitment to that. I still think we probably could do more for all of our overseas students. And if we had the staff capacity, having a champion for our overseas undergraduate and postgraduate researchers, I think, and also postdocs probably as well, would be a really good thing for us to be doing, I think. So it's something to perhaps to think about. And, you know, there is so much we could do. You know, we should be checking for equity in terms of how our students are treated. And, you know, I think on an individual level, we could think about that as, you know, research group leaders. Where are we sending our PhDs to conferences? Who is, you know, kind of getting included on publications? Who are first authors on publications? You know, it'd be very interesting to collect some of this data and to reflect on it, I think, as a department again. And, you know, we have talked about attainment gaps and that being one of the motivations for the decolonising, the curriculum work that's being conducted. But we do have some of these statistics, but I'm not sure that we're really open in presenting them in the department and discussing them. I think we could do more around that as well. And just, I think lastly, you know, we should be celebrating our successes and being mindful of that, because it is like anything. Sometimes there's a bit of action and then there's a bit of a move to do something, but are we doing it all of the time? Are we checking ourselves? Are we prompting ourselves? We do need to celebrate, you know, the amazing individuals that we've got in the department. And I know there are some absolutely incredible, you know, postgraduate and you know, PDRs who are ethnic minority individuals. So just a mindfulness, I think, to make sure these individuals are visible as role models would be amazing. Yeah. So I think that just finishes up there. And there's, yeah, just thank yous again to the people who've been kind of involved in this. And I've put Avta and Kirchi because they were both real supporters of this work. So that's really why they're on here. But that is so important. And I think in actually encouraging other individuals to come and speak in the forums that we held and you know, in the one-to-one interviews. And John has also been very supportive too, I think, around this. So that's sorry. So anyway, thank you all for your attention. I'm going to finish up there. All right.